I already have an animal walk cycle tutorial that I made a few years ago, but it's pretty short, and so I wanted to make an updated, more in-depth version. The pattern of steps is the same for pretty much all four-legged animals, at least all with paws or hooves, and then some. The way the animal carries itself will depend on the species, but the pattern is always back left, back right, front right. The timing of this can often be somewhat like a heartbeat. The back left steps down and is very quickly followed by the front left. Then there's a longer gap before the back right and the front right, creating a da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da rhythm. In this first frame, all of the feet are on the ground except for the back left. The front right is further forward than the front left, and the lifted back left leg is in the process of stepping forward, passing by the back right. This causes the rear of the animal to be slightly raised up. In the second frame, the front left foot has lifted off of the ground. The head moves up and forward slightly, and the front leg still on the ground has moved back. For a stationary walk animation like this, do your best to keep this distance traveled by the grounded feet relatively consistent between frames. The back left leg continues to step forward, and the rear has started to lower. In frame 3, the back leg that has been stepping forward touches down on the ground. The head now moves down and forward just a bit, and that front leg continues to move back with the same distance traveled between the previous frames. The lifted leg stretches further forward and is close to stepping down. The wide stance of the back legs causes the rear to lower more and possibly go back slightly. The fourth frame is when the front leg has stepped down and the back right is lifting up. Now the head moves down and back. This is just before it'll loop back to frame 1, so the head should fit nicely between and be a bit lower than the third and first frames it's sandwiched by. Make sure that everything else circles back to frame 1 as well, and notice that I drew this back leg centered between the green frame it just came from and frame 1 in red's closer leg on the ground. That's because the closer and further legs are about to swap in the second half of the animation. Here's what this looks like now, not quite finished yet. Next, you can copy and paste these 4 frames to make frames 5, 6, 7, and 8. The only change in these duplicates will be that, like I mentioned, the legs on the left side of the body and the right side of the body will be flipped. In each of these new frames, make the further legs become the closer legs, and the closer legs further. Now, when you play the animation, you should be able to spot any mistakes or awkward movement much more easily and then make fixes. I accidentally made a foot slide forward instead of backward in one of my drawings. Whoops. Luckily, things like that are easy to spot and easy to fix. Once you feel happy with the animation, you have the option to add in between frames depending on the speed, smoothness, and frame rate you want to use, but I think I'll leave this one at 8 frames and call this done. The movement of areas like the head should have a somewhat circular motion. The more parts of an animation where you can make things move with curves, the more natural the motion will tend to feel. Floppy sections, like the ears and tail, will react to the movement of the body. The subtle force of the head moving forward will make the ears pull back and drag behind very slightly. The tip of the tail here is similarly being pulled by the force from each time the back legs make a step forward. To remember this walk pattern, it helps me to think of it looking like the back legs are kicking the front legs forward. And even though there are 4 legs instead of 2, it really isn't too different from a human walk, at least in the way that one side of the body steps, and then the other. You may want to include a point right here between these 2 frames where all 4 feet are touching the ground. This tends to happen very briefly, given that the front leg usually steps down at close to the same time the back leg lifts up. So for animation purposes, I think this is only reasonable to include in a slower walk like this one, or if you're working with a higher frame rate, like maybe around 24. For a fast walk with limited frames, that moment is easier left uncaptured. If you are animating an animal starting to walk from a stand, the first step will usually be with one of the front legs. There are exceptions to this, but starting with a back leg is much less common. So front leg first is a safe bet, I would say, regardless of what animal you're probably animating. I'm excited to announce that my Patreon is officially open as of today, and a reference sheet version of this tutorial is available there for free. If you'd like to show support and help me continue to make these videos, there is a $2 tier that'll give you access to a currently very empty Discord server where you can share your art and do challenges with me, and there's also a few other resources you'll get, like Photoshop brushes. The link to all that is below. Thanks for watching!